Hey everyone, it's Bill here again. Now, if I sound more than usually like Animal from the Muppets today, rah, Animal, it's because I've got a really heavy cold, so sorry about that, but I really wanted to get on and make a tutorial anyway, because it's been a little while since I posted one, a couple of months in fact, I think. And the reason it's been a little while is that I've been head down finalising my latest book, which is called How to Be a Better Musician, and it is finally available. If you want to find out more about it right now, then the website address is bettermusicianbook.com, but I'm going to be talking more about it later in the tutorial, because what I want to do is get on and talk about the practice techniques that we're going to cover in today's tutorial, which are actually taken from How to Be a Better Musician. I wanted to kind of give you a flavour of some of the things in the book. So what we're going to do is look at three really useful practice techniques. They are attack the problem, push past, and tallying. Okay, we've looked at some of them before, but I want to kind of look at them kind of all together, because it's when you use them together that they start to be really powerful. Now, obviously, I'm going to be demonstrating this stuff on the piano, but these techniques work for any musical instrument, okay, not just for us piano players. What I'm going to do to demonstrate these techniques is look at a piece of music I wrote a few months ago for one of my intermediate piano tutorials, okay. I have a course running intermediate piano tutorials here on YouTube, and I'm currently working through a set of variations actually, and we're going to look at variation 1 from Uncle Harry's Variations, yeah. Now, here it is. If you don't read music, don't worry, okay? It's not a big deal. Or if your music reading isn't that great and this looks really complicated, don't worry. The only reason I'm doing this from a written score is that it makes it easier to visualize, okay? You can just as easily use these three techniques with kind of improvised stuff, you know, if you're practicing riffs, stuff like that, you can just as easily use attack the problem, tallying, and push past with those techniques. We're just using a written score because it makes it easier to visualize. So, like I said, here we are, Uncle Harry's Variations. What I'm going to do is play through for you. Well, I'm not actually going to physically play. I'm just going to repeat the recording from the tutorial. I'm going to play through this little piece of music for you, and as we listen to it, I'll have the score on screen and I'll talk a little bit about it as we go, pointing out the difficult bits and some of the problems. And then we will think about how we might go about using our three techniques to deal with one of the major difficulties in this piece. So here's the score on screen. I'll just set it running and talk about some of the stuff that's going on. It's about 50 seconds long, so it shouldn't take too long. By the way, if you like the tune and you want to listen to it without me wittering over the top, I'll stick it at the end of the video without any talking, yeah? Also, you can check it out in the Intermediate Piano series. I'll add a link in the description text below. Okay, here we go. So starting off very plain and simple. Single note melody in the right hand. Simple pattern in the left hand. Bit more tricky, thirds in the right hand. Okay, a little bit more challenging here. And now we come to a really tricky bit. Okay, and settle down again. We're going to come back to those bars, 15 and 16. This bit isn't as hard as it looks actually. Back to relative simplicity. More thirds in the right hand. Nice sus chord there. And a very gentle broken chord to finish. Okay, so like I said, this piece actually starts really easily. If you just watch me play the first few bars. There's nothing super complicated going on there. We've got simple single note melody in the right hand. We've got this bass pattern in the left. It's called an Alberti bass. Yeah, a really common thing on the piano. And it's not particularly difficult. Things get gradually more difficult as we work through the piece, okay? And that's kind of deliberate because I wrote it as a teaching piece. And the particular problem that I want to deal with is that the one that turns up in bars 15 and 16, okay? So that's where we do this. So So let me just slow that down and show you why it's a little bit tricky. We start on a D chord on the first beat of bar 15, and then the right hand starts going up a D major scale. And then when we get to the start of bar 16, the left hand joins in. And here we've got some tricky fingering. So we go up to the G's, and in the right hand, we've got a G with our thumb, but then we have to hit this A with our fourth. Okay, so we have to kind of squash up our hand, and that means we can get to these chord shapes easily at the end of the bar. Okay, let me just play that a little bit quicker. And then you're back into the more melodic section, as it were. Now, let's imagine that you or I are practicing this piece. Probably we would make, if you were a reasonable piano player, you would make reasonable progress with it up until that point. You might have a little bit of a problem in bar 10 where we get those that awkward scale in thirds, but that's relatively easy to deal with. I think the most challenging bit that you come across immediately, maybe the most challenging bit in the piece, is this section in bars 15 or 16. Now, this is where we can start to deploy our three techniques: attack the problem, push past, and tallying. First of all, attack the problem. And this is actually more of a mindset than a technique. The way amateurs tend to practice is that they play through a piece. They start off at the beginning. They carry on through until they make a mistake or they get to a bit that doesn't work, and they kind of work through that. I find that really difficult. So what do? They go back to the beginning of the piece. And the pattern repeats and repeats and repeats. In this example, that's maybe an exaggeration. Even a real kind of beginner probably wouldn't go right back to the beginning. But people tend to go back further than they need to, okay? And that means that you end up spending a lot of your practice time playing through stuff that actually is pretty easy. And that's not really practicing. That's just playing stuff that you can already play. What professional players tend to do, and professionals really make the most of their practice time. They really value efficiency. If they've got 20 minutes to practice, they're going to make themselves sweat, okay? What a professional will do is attack the problem. So they'll isolate the couple of bars that are causing a problem and practice them over and over and over again. So we know that the two bars that are causing a problem here are bars 15 and 16. So the professional will take those out and practice them over and over again. Maybe quite slowly at first. And again. Just kind of familiarising themselves with that fingering, really getting it kind of automatic. If you were more kind of, if this piece was more of a challenge, you might take it really slowly to start with. How does it work? You're kind of like this, and then there's that awkward fingering there, okay? That is attacking the problem. And like I said, it's more of a mindset than anything else, okay? And it's... one complication of it that you need to be aware of is even once you've dealt with the problem, you then need to spend a little bit of time kind of seating it back into the piece. In the book, in How to Be a Better Musician, the comparison I use is taking out and replacing a roof tile. If you've ever been up on a tiled roof and taken a tile out, then when you put it back in or put a new one in, you kind of have to reseat the other tiles around it so they sit properly. And it's the same thing here. What you will probably do after you dealt with the problem is practice it with the run in and the run out. Okay? So, but attacking the problem, focusing in, homing in on the problem, not wasting your time playing through stuff that you can already play quite competently, is a key professional technique. Attack the problem. Now, what about push past and tallying? This is where it gets interesting, and where you kind of have to work on almost fooling yourself. Yeah? Let's imagine that you've isolated bars 15 and 16, and you've played through them a few times, and after a little while, this happens. And you think, great, I've got it. Brilliant, job done. And you resume practicing as you were. The problem is you probably actually haven't got it. Yeah, you're making progress for sure, but just getting it right that time was probably a fluke. And even if it wasn't a fluke, even if you can get it right 9 times out of 10, you'll probably find it's still a weak spot. And if you're then in a situation where you're under pressure, for example, you're performing, even if it's just for an audience of one person, then it's likely to fall apart again, okay? Because the pressure of performance will make it fall apart. So the technique of push past involves pushing past the point at which you think you have got it, okay? So you play that little section and you say, right, I've got it, but I'm going to keep going. And this is where tallying comes in, because it is difficult to judge subjectively how much more you need to practice it. So if I'm practicing a problem area like this, and like I said, it can be written music, it can be jazz, it can be whatever, I will say, right, I've more or less got it, but I'm going to play through those 2 bars another 40 times. And then I'll get a post-it note and a pen, or a bit of paper and a pen, and I will literally keep tally. So I will play through. And again. And when I've done 5 times, I won't tally it off every time, but I'll do a tally of 5 and then repeat and repeat until I've done 40 or even more. And after I've done 40, I might decide that I need to do more, or I might come back the following day and do another 40. And that's really kind of doubling down, making sure it genuinely is instinctive for me, okay? Because you can't trust yourself. It's very easy to say, yeah, this is getting a bit boring. I've kind of done enough. I'll go off and have a cup of tea and a piece of chocolate cake or whatever. If you take that decision out of your head and put it onto the tally sheet and say, yeah, I've got to do 40, then it objectifies the whole process, if you see what I mean. Okay, it makes it, it takes it away from your subjective judgment. Anyway, there are loads of little techniques like this, like tallying and push past, in how to be a better musician. It's taken me the best part of 4 years to write this book, because not only have I tried to put into it my own experiences of running the YouTube channel, I've also dug around in all the latest research about the science of skill learning and things like that, and tried to synthesize that in as well. I've tried to write it in such a way that it will really suit the kind of musicians, people like you who follow my YouTube channel. So I've tried to address a lot of the questions that I often get on the channel. So, a really good example is I'm often asked about performance plateaus. People say to me, hey Bill, I've been practicing and I was getting better, but suddenly I've stopped getting better. I've hit a plateau. So there's actually a whole chapter in the book on that, looking at my experience of dealing with plateaus, what I know works for people, but also looking at the kind of underlying science of it, because I find that understanding that underlying science really helps me as a musician to make progress, because it helps you to realise why it's a difficult process, improving as a musician, and why it kind of has to be difficult. But there's loads of stuff in there. It's a very broad-based book, and that kind of reflects my belief that musicianship is a broad-based activity, okay? So obviously there's a lot of stuff on how to improve as a performer, but there's also a lot of material in there about creativity, which I think is really important. If you want to get into composing and songwriting, there's stuff about, the mindset you need for improvisation. There's stuff about developing your ear skills and singing, dealing with performance issues, overcoming performance anxiety, lots and lots of different things like that. Plus, there are loads and loads of exercises, more than 40 exercises, because I want to keep it very practical. And there's a podcast running as well. As of now, mid-December 2022, I've released 2 episodes of the podcast, and more will be coming. Hopefully at least 1 podcast episode to accompany every chapter of the book as we move into 2023. You can find out about the whole thing over at bettermusicianbook.com. Okay, so information about the book, information about the podcast, all over there. Head over there once this video is over and check it out, bettermusicianbook.com. So there we go. Do please check that out. I think you'll really like it. I'll say what I always say when I wind up a tutorial. Please also remember to subscribe to my channel if you're not. Hit that big red subscribe button. Follow me on social media. Facebook, Twitter and Instagram links are all down below in the description text. And you might like my other products as well, my piano packs and my book bundles. Again, there are links to those in the description text below. Okay, so happy practicing. I'll be interested to know what you make of these techniques, so let me know. And I'll see you next time. Hopefully I'll sound better then, by the way. Animal. See you soon.